A humanoid robot named Sally is expected to enter a public school classroom in Salamanca, New York during the 2026-27 school year. The initial plan places her with older high school students studying artificial intelligence, coding, and robotics. Sally is not a walking robot teacher. She is a stationary, female presenting Realbotix M-Series humanoid with a human-like face, silicone skin, and moving upper body parts. The district describes her as an instructional tool that can answer questions, demonstrate embodied artificial intelligence, and encourage students to think through problems. This is a small pilot, but it has attracted national attention because it brings a highly human-like machine into a space built around trust, authority, privacy, and young people. The story becomes even more interesting when we look at the company behind Sally, the digital tutoring system that comes with her, and Realbotix's corporate connection to the RealDoll business. Salamanca City's Central School District is in western New York on Seneca Nation territory. The district has invested heavily in science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics, education, and is recognized as a WAS Ed STEM pathway district. According to the district, the first users will be a small group of high school students and participating staff members. News reporting says Sally will initially work with 11th and 12th grade classes focused on coding, robotics, and artificial intelligence. Realbotix and Onkinetics materials describe a possible expansion reaching roughly 500 high school students in the fall. Those numbers refer to the broader Optio platform and school pilot, not 500 students surrounding the physical robot at once. Keeping the scale clear matters. This is not a district-wide replacement of teachers. It is an experiment centered on specialized courses, with the school saying it will learn from student and educator feedback. Sally is an M-Series robot from Realbotix. The company describes the M-Series as a modular, full-bodied robot that is stationary from the waist down but has robotic upper body movement. It can be configured in seated or standing presentations and uses facial motors, arm movement, hand movement, voice, and conversation to create the impression of a socially present character. Reporting on the Salamanca agreement puts the purchase at $57,590, with an additional annual fee for software updates and access to the controller used to load content. Sally is therefore expensive compared with a laptop or ordinary classroom software. Her value is supposed to come from embodiment. Students can look toward a face, hear a voice in the room, observe expressions, and see how robotics hardware connects to artificial intelligence. The key question is whether those features improve learning enough to justify the additional cost and complexity. The physical robot is only one part of the project. The other part is Optio, Realbotix's digital teacher assistant and at-home tutoring system. Students can interact with personalized avatars trained on district curriculum, ask for explanations, reinforce concepts, translate material, and continue learning outside the classroom. Realbotix says Optio can remember earlier interactions through anonymous student codes, allowing a later session to continue where a previous one ended. This means much of the practical tutoring may happen on a laptop rather than through Sally's physical body. That distinction gives Salamanca an unusually important research opportunity. The district can compare the value of the same educational content through a screen with the value of encountering it through a human-like robot. If both systems produce similar results, then the robot may mainly be a demonstration platform. If students learn more effectively with Sally, researchers will need to identify exactly why. The district has published a detailed list of privacy and safety promises. It says the system does not collect personally identifying information, does not record video or audio, and does not send student data to Realbotix. The district also says Sally will use only content intentionally loaded by the school, will not search the open internet, and will respond that she does not know when a question falls outside her approved knowledge base. Safety guardrails are supposed to redirect inappropriate conversations toward educational topics. These are encouraging commitments, but they remain claims that should be verified during real operation. The public will need clear answers about how long interaction histories are retained, who can access or delete them, what happens when a student raises a safety concern, and whether parents and students receive meaningful choices. Privacy rules become especially important when a machine has a human-like face and may feel more trustworthy than an ordinary software interface. Salamanca repeatedly says that Sally will not replace teachers, staff members, or meaningful human interaction. That distinction should remain visible throughout the pilot. A teacher understands classroom relationships, notices changes in behavior, interprets family and cultural context, and carries professional responsibilities that a robot does not. Sally can retrieve approved information, prompt students, demonstrate robotics, and provide another way to practice. She should not become an unquestioned authority, counselor, disciplinarian, or substitute for human judgment. Reports indicate that speaking with Sally will be voluntary, which would allow students who feel uncomfortable around a highly human-like robot to use another resource. The strongest version of this project would keep educators clearly in control, teach students how the system works, explain its limitations, and treat the robot as something to study critically rather than as a magical source of truth. Realbotix believes a face, voice, physical presence, and recognizable identity can make artificial intelligence more approachable. That may be true. People often speak differently to a human-like figure than they do to a text box. A robot may attract students who are curious about engineering, help demonstrate motors and sensors, or encourage a hesitant learner to ask another question. But an outside educational technology expert quoted by Inc. made an important distinction. Novelty is not the same as learning. Students will almost certainly pay attention when Sally first arrives. The real test begins weeks or months later, when the machine is no longer new. A rigorous evaluation would compare students using Sally, students using Optio on a laptop, and students receiving the same lesson without either system. It would measure academic growth, retention, time on task, confidence, and whether engagement survives after the initial fascination fades. The company history behind Sally is unusual and relevant. RealDoll says its work with lifelike silicone companions began in 1996, growing from sculpture and special effects craftsmanship into companionship technology, artificial intelligence, and robotics. In April 2024, a public company acquired Simulacra, the business created by RealDoll founder Matt McMullen and later adopted the Realbotix corporate name. Public filings describe Realbotix as making customizable, human-like robots for learning, connection, entertainment, customer service, and other commercial uses. In 2026, a proposed transaction was announced for Onconetics to acquire Realbotix LLC, the commercial robotics subsidiary. The parent company said it would continue operating Abyss Creations, the adult-focused business behind RealDoll. Because that transaction was still pending in the latest materials, the exact corporate structure may change. Any video about the connection needs to use dates and avoid pretending the relationship is simpler than it is. The accurate headline is not that a sex doll is being placed inside a school. Sally is not a converted adult product. The accurate point is that the commercial humanoid robot company behind Sally shares a corporate history and, according to July 2026 reporting, a parent company, with Abyss Creations, which operates the RealDoll brand. The businesses serve different markets. Realbotix focuses on humanoid robotics for areas such as customer service, entertainment, healthcare, companionship, and now education. RealDoll sells adult intimacy products and AI-enabled companions. The connection remains relevant because expertise in lifelike silicone, facial design, physical realism, and human-like presentation helped create the technological path that later supported commercial humanoid robots. A responsible report can explain that history without using explicit imagery or implying that the classroom robot was designed for an adult purpose. Realbotix has directly addressed the concern. The company told Inc. that Sally is a newly manufactured M-Series educational robot built by Realbotix employees. It says, Sally incorporates no RealDoll blueprints, no adult product hardware, and No Abyss Creations personnel. Realbotix also says the businesses have separate personnel, management, facilities, operations, and products. Those statements are important and should be presented clearly. They do not erase the corporate history, but they prevent the story from becoming misleading. The most interesting issue is not whether Sally secretly contains an adult product. The more meaningful issue is how technologies developed around realistic human appearance can move into new environments. The same general skills, sculpting faces, producing silicone skin, animating expressions, and building conversational systems can be applied to companionship, customer service, elder care, entertainment, and education. The intended use, safeguards, governance, and evidence have to be evaluated separately in each setting. Several questions will determine whether the Salamanca experiment becomes a useful model or a cautionary story. First, does Sally produce measurable educational improvement beyond the Optio software alone? Second, do students continue using her after the novelty disappears? Third, how are anonymous codes, conversation histories, and safety alerts managed in practice? Fourth, can students and parents opt out without losing access to coursework? Fifth, will independent researchers or state officials be allowed to examine privacy, bias, accuracy, and accessibility? And sixth, how will teachers explain the difference between a convincing social interface and a person who genuinely understands a student's life? A human-like robot can make software feel more authoritative, caring, or knowledgeable than the same words on a screen. That effect may increase engagement, but it can also increase misplaced trust. The pilot should be transparent enough for the community to judge both benefits and risks. Sally matters because she represents a transition from artificial intelligence behind a screen to artificial intelligence occupying a social space. Her body does not make the software wiser, but it changes how people may respond to it. Students might be more curious, more comfortable, more skeptical, or more willing to treat the system as a character. That is why this classroom pilot connects to a much larger discussion about humanoid robots in homes, hospitals, stores, elder care, and virtual worlds. The right response is neither automatic fear nor automatic celebration. Salamanca should test the system carefully, publish what it learns, protect student choice, and be willing to change course if the evidence does not support expansion. My closing question is this: would you be comfortable with a humanoid like Sally assisting in a high school classroom, and what evidence would you need before deciding that the benefits outweigh the risks?